something you might have been wondering when you've been watching History with Hilbert is, who actually is Hilbert? And I'm not so sure. So I decided to investigate. And during this investigation, I found out 5 things about History with Hilbert. Number 1, my real name is Hilbert. Now, Hilbert is a Frisian name. It's also used in some other Germanic languages, but the reason I'm called Hilbert is because of its connection with the Frisians and because it's a name in the Frisian language. And Hilbert is actually a compound name, which means it's made up of 2 words to make up the name, and the 2 words in it are Hild, which meant battle, and Bert, which meant bright. So, yes, my real name is Hilbert, and that's what it means. Number 2, I live in Northumberland. Now, Northumberland is a northeastern county in England. It sits right next to the border with Scotland, and it's also one of the largest, if not the largest, in the United Kingdom. And Northumberland is a very beautiful county. Now, I'll put some images on, and you can see that it's very diverse as well, but it's all sort of highland with heather is very characteristic of the county, and it's absolutely fascinating. And it's not so developed, not as in the people here are backwards, but that the countryside, there is a lot more countryside than in probably the rest of the United Kingdom. There are fewer cities rather, and there's lots of history as well. So you've obviously got things like Hadrian's Wall, but then you've got lots of different castles dotted around the place. You've got some beautiful churches as well, and monastic history, because of course Northumberland was one of the most important kingdoms during the Anglo-Saxon period. You've got evidence of Viking attacks. Lindisfarne is actually in Northumberland. You also have all these battlefields where the Scots were massacred, where they fought bravely but were unfortunately defeated by their English enemies. And I've been very lucky to be able to grow up here in such a beautiful place. And I think that what I might do in a few future videos is go out to places in Northumberland when it's the summer, when it's nice weather, or trek out with a camera and make some history videos of all these historical places. Now, as some of you might know from my beautiful Dutch pronunciation and my obsession with the Frisians, I have Dutch and Frisian ancestry as well. So both of my parents are actually from the Netherlands. So I would class myself as being a sort of hybrid, because I feel like I am Dutch and Frisian as well as English, because obviously I've grown up for the most of my life in England, but my roots are in the Netherlands, and I speak Dutch. I understand the Dutch culture. So I feel like a bit of both. So I'm a bit of a wayfarer. I like to think of myself as a modern-day Anglo-Saxon, how they came from Europe and they founded their kingdoms in England, in Northumberland and Mercia. I pretty much did the same, so that's how I like to see myself. But yeah, I also have these Dutch and Frisian roots, so I really like going back to the Netherlands, because although Northumberland has been my home and will continue to be my home for the near future, I still feel like going back to the Netherlands is like going back to a different home, and I always really look forward to going back. It's incredibly different. As you can see from the images, the landscape is totally different to the rugged hills and peaks of Northumberland. It's completely flat. The people look different as well. The people sound different, and I just like the difference, really. It's something that's part of me, and it always has been part of me, and it always will be a part of me. So I can confidently say that I feel at home in both of these places. So, as some of you might know if you've been watching this channel for a little bit longer, I'm very interested in languages, and obviously I can speak English fluently, and I am also fairly fluent in Dutch. I would class myself as fluent in Dutch. I just sometimes get some of the spellings wrong because they are a pain, but I speak fluent Dutch and I can understand Dutch very well. Now, I'm also learning French at the moment. I'm learning Frisian, of course, because my roots are in Frisia, and it's a language that's unfortunately come under a lot of threat. So I really want to help to preserve my this culture, this identity, and this language. So obviously I'm learning Frisian. And by the way, when I'm saying Frisian, I know there are more types of Frisian, but the one I'm trying to learn is called West-Fries, or West-Vlaams-Fries, and that is West Frisian from the Netherlands. And I'm also learning Spanish as well, because I think Spanish is a very good tool to have, just as French is, because then you can get around most of South America. Now, I also have a reasonably good understanding of Afrikaans. I can understand it fairly well, and that's not just because I do Dutch. I know some basic Afrikaans as well. I think I could hold a short conversation in Afrikaans, and obviously being able to speak Dutch really does help with Afrikaans as well. Now, it's sort of the same thing with German. I know a little bit of German. I went to Germany, I did some translation there. So I think I could get around in German without too much bother, but I wouldn't say I was fluent in it, and I'm not actively learning more at the moment, although I probably will when I have the time to. And with Norwegian, I know a smattering of Norwegian, so I know a little bit. I could hold an incredibly short conversation. I could probably guess what a lot of the words were if they were written down, or get the sort of general, broader meaning of what's being said. But details are pretty difficult, and especially when they're talking quickly and in dialect, that's just no no. So, yeah, those are the languages I know. Now, the fifth and final fact that I have learned about history with Hilbert is in fact that I have a third eye. It's right in the middle of my forehead, so where the other two eyes are, you just go up and then put it right in the center. It's just as big as the other ones and it's the same color. And when I open this third eye, I actually go back in time. So when I go back in time, I can see all of this history, and that's really the inspiration behind History with Hilbert, is when I open my third eye and go back in time to see these things. So that's why I know that the Vikings didn't call themselves Vikings, because I travelled back in time using this eye and heard them saying, we don't call ourselves Vikings. I'm just kidding, guys. I don't have a third eye. But I am History with Hilbert, and this has been my 5 facts about History with Hilbert. Now, I do actually have brown eyes, in case you're wondering, and I might make some more of these videos and slowly reveal more of my character. But in the historic words of the Golden One, who am I? That's a secret I'll never tell. XXO.